So there's a phrase that's bothered me for years, especially coming from a religious background, Abrahamic religion, specifically Christianity, which is that women need love and men need respect. And actually, there's a quite well-known book within Christian circles, particularly kind of white American Christianity, although I think the book traveled to other parts of the world, which is exactly about that. And it sounds harmless, it sounds maybe even romantic, maybe wise, but actually I think it's one of the most dangerous relationship ideas that is ever taught to women, because it teaches women to evaluate relationships through one particular lens and men evaluate it through another lens. And I think the consequences can be quite significant. I also think it's hugely outdated anyway, to say that women only need love, and that's the main way women want to be treated, or the feeling that women want to have in relationships and marriage, versus men. If you listen to most men, okay, and I think it's fair to say that. I think it's fair to say that whenever you hear men of all walks of life, races, etc., they all reel off the exact same thing, that they want and need respect. Okay, and I think it's really important, especially as women, to again think critically about these things, and which is really the opposite of what systems of power and misogynistic men anyway want you to do. Because when you start thinking critically about this, you will observe and realize the gaps. Okay, now the way I see it is this. Look, often the definition of respect in practice, because obviously you can always go and look at any dictionary to see what respect actually means, but the definition of respect often in practice is very hazy and vague. Okay, and at the same time, again, when you listen to most men, they all tend to name very similar or the same things that denote or feel like respect to them. But the way I see it is that there are often three types of respect in practice. Okay, respect in practice. Okay, there's basic human respect, and this is really about dignity. You hear me talk about dignity a lot, and that annoys some people, because quite often when we start talking about dignity, it cuts through a lot of the common behaviors and speech and attitudes that people have that are very common these days. Because if you don't value your own dignity and that of others, then you will behave anyhow. Okay, and often when you ask people to respect you and recognize your dignity, it can put some shoulders out of joint, because ultimately they don't want to. Okay, the truth is every human being deserves dignity, regardless of gender, age, status, income, education, right? That's one of the reasons why we don't kick people just out randomly in the street. Not that we should be doing it at home, but you get my drift. Okay, it's actually even viewed to be completely unacceptable to kick an animal, and yet we have people who kick other human beings. You see where I'm coming from here? Because we often believe that animals, for example, should not be kicked. They don't deserve to be kicked. They're animals. and still we often tolerate and often enable this kind of violence towards or amongst human beings. Okay, we do not humiliate people. Well, generally speaking, we don't seek to humiliate people, right? We don't degrade people. That is about basic human dignity. So that's one type of respect. The other type of respect is authority respect. Okay, this is usually role-based. Examples: judges, doctors. In lots of cultures around the world, doctors are highly regarded in the community. Police officers, not always highly regarded for various reasons, but generally speaking, if you see a police car on the side of the road or they start doing the buzzer thing, people move out the way, they slow down or they stop, okay? Priests, vicars, religious authority. The respect comes from the position, not necessarily the individual, because like I say, even with the police, generally speaking, not all people respect the police. Okay, and how the police or the criminal justice system functions as a system. But in terms of the role and the title, people may comply, acquiesce, and obey, right? Because of it's the role. It's an authority role. And so therefore, when you comply and obey, it is seen as a sign of respect. The same could actually potentially be said of parents. Yeah, you may not agree with everything your parents say or do, especially when you're a child, but it is expected. in culture and community that your obedience is a sign of respect. And there's so many ways that people take that way too far, but nonetheless, it is, expected that you will demonstrate this respect. But that is because of authority. It doesn't necessarily carry warmth, genuine feeling and esteem for that authority role. It doesn't necessarily come with that. Now, the third type is relational respect. And I think this is the type of respect that is earned through consistency and through demonstrated behavior. And I think it's the type of respect that a lot of human beings struggle with the most, especially misogynistic men, because they actually believe in the authority respect that is about compliance and obedience. And that's based on a role, a title, as opposed to relational respect, which would require you to earn that respect. And the other important factor is here that somebody is not necessarily going to, from a deep internal place, respect you just because you pay all the bills, right? The kind of respect that I think human beings, generally speaking, should be aiming for is that kind of genuine, sincere, warm, from within respect that you give to someone, where you consider their feelings, you genuinely care about them and their well-being. Okay, that kind of relational respect is produced as a result of integrity, consistency, honesty, and accountability. And that includes self-accountability, not just the fact that other people may be holding you accountable, so that over time, people trust you. Yeah, it's about trust as well. You basically build up good credit in the bank over time. And that does require earnest humility. And that is something that, generally speaking, men are not conditioned and programmed to value. There's an expectation, a requirement that a woman will respect them. But what is truly required for the type of respect that, let's be honest, in a healthy, functional relationship you deserve, okay, you also have to be putting as much credit in the bank as the other person. Your role and title is not enough. And I say this coming from a religion where literally what was taught to us as young women is that your husband sets the rules and regulations quite simply because he's a husband. He's the head of the household. So you must submit to him, and that's the way you respect him. Right? And so actually a lot of people in general, but we are talking specifically in relation to some of these dynamics that men and women are often taught and are still being espoused very commonly today, that men need respect. Okay, well, human beings need respect, by the way. There's 3 types of respect. And the funny thing is that it seems to me that it's much more difficult for people to show people basic human respect than it is authority respect. Because often authority respect is, again, in the family setting, you're often reliant on your parents to survive. So you have no choice but to respect them, right? At least perform respect. When it comes to authority roles in the secular world, if government ministers, people who have control and influence over systems that we have to navigate. If you go through immigration at an airport, people tend to follow the rules, line up in the right place. They don't want to be stopped and hauled off to a room. So there's a certain compliance because of consequence that comes with showing that office, that title, that role respect. Okay, but it seems to me when we look at general behavior in society that people find it far more difficult to give people basic human respect than they do to simply comply and respect someone because of title and role. And I think this is where it gets very sticky when women are taught you only need love, you don't need respect. And the thing that I have seen in the comments in the past when I have done videos on this, mostly on TikTok, is women will say, well, you can't really have love without respect. Well, talk to the average man, because he thinks you can. A lot of men will say that they don't need some of the other things, which, as I said, is a folly. And I think often it has something to do with the way they are raised as well, because often they're not raised in healthy ways where they can expect more than just compliance and obedience. Okay, like I said, I'm not a man, but if you are a man and you truly want to feel cared for and considered, relational respect is the type of respect really you want to be exhibiting and demonstrating, and then choosing somebody who also has those values and is going to demonstrate that in a reciprocal, mutual way. If you truly want to know and feel like the woman in your life deeply esteems you, genuinely respects you for who you are, not supposedly what it is that you give to her, then relational respect is your best bet. But the problem that we have is that people are conditioned and programmed and then expect the kind of compliance and obedience type of respect, the authority respect, which, as I said, in the end doesn't really fulfill anyone, in my view, right? And so relational respect is about earning trust. Keyword earning. And a lot of people don't want to earn anything. They just want you to respect them. And that's not how it works beyond basic human respect. It's not how it works. And the thing is that the problem with women being taught that you only need love and with men being taught that women only need love is that the definition even of love is hazy. Now, again, if you come from Christianity and you have been taught love as a biblical concept, there are usually 4 types of love described in the Bible, for example. And so actually the definitions of love or the types of love are explored usually in the Christian faith. However, in everyday life and when in the context of romance and dating, often the type of love that women are encouraged to value and focus on is performative. Romance is performative, right? At its lowest level, it's performative. And so you're kind of taught as a woman to be looking at the words someone says, gifts, flowers, a romantic dinner, all of those kind of things, okay? Women are rarely taught to ask themselves, am I being respected? Instead, they're taught, am I being loved? Those are very different things. You might believe they should go hand in hand, but they are still different and there are differences, okay? And that all sounds beautiful and poetic and all of the things until you realize that people who claim to love you sometimes believe genuinely that they are allowed to disrespect you. Again, if you listen, there's a lot of ongoing debate, or even just a belief that you, for example, can cheat on someone that you love. There are men who will swear blind. This is grown adult men who will tell you that they do cheat on their wives, but they love their wife, and that the two can be true at the same time. Do you see the problem if you as a woman genuinely have drank the Kool-Aid that you only need love? Because what you might find is you're not being respected. You are not being respected in that process. And that is a problem. That is a problem. You should not be accepting disrespect and only looking to this kind of performative romantic love. The baseline should be respect. And one of the things I will say is that men understand, if they value respect, start valuing it in yourself and see what happens. When you have self-respect and you require someone to respect you, it changes the dynamics massively. Because whilst you're in your head about love, that means that person can run amok and keep telling you that they love you, even though their actions, habits, and patterns are disrespectful. And this creates a blind spot for women, okay? Because really and truly, you're sitting there seeking love, whatever love means to you, however love has been modeled to you in your childhood, in your family setup, in the environment you're in. And so you're asking yourself, does he love me? Does he have feelings for me? Yeah, feelings are very flowery. Yeah, again, you can't really pin them down all the time. Notice that in the world more generally, we're always saying that women can't separate fact from feeling. Women are too emotional. Women are in their feelings. And there you are asking yourself whether he has feelings for you, even though apparently, according to male logic, feelings are not as valuable as the facts. You see how that works? Whereas a woman seeking respect thinks, how does he treat me? Not what does he say? How do I feel? No, it's how does he treat me? I'll say this to you. I remember one day years ago, a man sent me a text and I thought to myself, And I, for a day or so, it kept popping up in my mind and I didn't feel good about it. And I remember speaking to somebody else, an older male, and I kind of explained the story. And I remember as I was verbalizing it, I realized the stupidity in the air myself. And of course, he said to me, Well, how is he treating you? Conversation done, dusted, and over. I couldn't even pretend I should have known. I should have known the answer to that, because as the words were leaving my mouth, I realized, yeah, this is foolishness. How I feel is not the correct barometer, right? It's how is he treating you? Yeah, does he honor the agreements that you've made, like the agreement to be loyal and faithful to one another? Does he tell the truth? Does he respect your boundaries? Does he behave? Behave. Actions, evidence, demonstrable behavior. Does he behave with integrity? Those are different questions that often lead to different answers. And so it's really important, actually, that you do not drink the Kool-Aid on women need love and men need respect, because this is how you miss fundamental things that you need to be aware of if you are considering a relationship, and even more seriously, a marriage, because they produce different outcomes. Now, you really have to understand that love is claimed. It's something that people can, say with words. Respect is demonstrated. Love is often described. Why do you think we've got all these romance novels, poems, the greatest love poems of all time, songs? Yeah, because love can be described, whereas respect is observable. Love is often subjective. Like I say, there are people who legitimately will tell you that they love you while they slap you. Yeah. A lot of abusers, they've told many of their own victims that they love them. During the abuse, after the abuse, they will tell you that they love you. Yeah. Someone will cheat on you repeatedly and tell you that they love you. Yeah? So love is very subjective, whereas respect leaves evidence. And women are frequently socialized to evaluate relationships through the lens of love. Now, if you're evaluating a relationship through the lens of love, that means it's subjective, often theoretical. Whereas if you're evaluating a relationship through the lens of respect, that's more grounded. There's more anchor there. Yeah? So you should be asking yourself, do I feel loved? Does he love me? Could he love me? God forbid, that's the whole potential. Maybe he'll love me one day. Maybe there's a reason in his childhood that he doesn't know how to love. That's not your business. That's not your business. It's not your business. Yet the more useful questions that will reveal whether this is what you want it to be is, does he respect you? Yeah, because when you are looking at whether someone respects you, you're now evaluating their behavior. You begin evaluating reality. You stop asking what someone's saying and listening to what they're saying. You start looking at what they're doing. Yeah? People will repeatedly lie to you, betray you, humiliate you, violate you, disregard your boundaries, and still tell you that they love you. So what is that love actually producing? All right? And the thing is, when love exists without respect, chances are as women, we often are socialized and we often encourage each other to tolerate things that we should not be tolerating. How many times have you heard a woman say, but he loves me, or I love him? I saw a married couple recently talking on their podcast, and they were saying that love should conquer all. You see, all that, it sounds great. Love without respect, though, yeah, leads to liberty. That's what it leads to. And often, a lot of the time, women are the ones drawing the short end of the stick on that. Because the distinction between love and respect can be life-changing, life-saving even. Because once you start measuring respect and dignity and behavior instead of romantic declarations, well, reality becomes much easier to see. And don't get me wrong, one of the things that I've had to come to understand with time in life is that a lot of women, and maybe even some men, but a lot of women want the romance. They want the romance. They want it to feel good. They want the relationship to feel like a candlelit dinner on the beach every day. And so those are the things that you're looking out for. You're looking for that feeling. And when you start looking at reality, when you start looking at someone's behavior, often it feels like you're in the car park on top of a supermarket where there's graffiti and chewing gum stuck everywhere. When you start looking at a person's behavior, right? This is important. And the thing is, one thing I know for true is when you start looking at respect and you value respect and dignity over everything, and that is the lens through which you look at somebody's behavior, okay, it puts someone on notice, and that's not a bad thing. Because if men require respect and you start saying, well, actually, I have self-respect and I also require the type of respect that you want, it puts them on notice, because it's much more difficult for them to start doing all sorts of foolishness and take liberties with you and then tell you that it's respectful, because it's not. And that's why that's the way I function when it comes to men. It's evident that I respect myself. And it's evident, and I make it clear, do you know what? I get it. I understand why you want to be respected. Don't we all? Me too. When they say, what's your highest value? I never answer the question, what are you looking for? Because I'm not looking for anything. But what's your highest value? Respect. Come and see the silence. Because what they're often used to is a woman saying, oh, someone who is kind and cares about me and listens to me, makes me laugh. Everything changes when you meet somebody at their level. And you're like, you know what? Yeah, I get it. Why wouldn't you want to be respected? I think that's a basic. We all deserve respect. I too enjoy being respected and treated with respect. The only thing is, some of the more cheeky, mature ones who think they're clever will then say to you, well, if you respect yourself, then I respect you. I don't play by those rules. I give people basic human respect regardless. So you're not going to try and play games with me in my mind. I conduct myself in a certain way, and therefore I will observe the way you treat me. And if you're not treating me with respect, I'm not going to barter, beg, or negotiate. That's one thing as well women need to stop doing. Stop bartering, stop negotiating, stop begging for respect and dignity. An adult man chooses to respect you. There is nothing you can do to earn his respect. That is a lie. It is a lie. It is a myth. It is a lie. As I said, there are women out there who played by the rules, and still the vows that they made mean nothing to that man. Her loyalty means nothing. Her sexual availability to him means nothing. Her mothering his children means nothing. He still disrespects her. This is something you have to be aware of. Men, and you know what? It's not even just men. It is human beings choose to respect you or not. Don't buy into the lie that there are things you can do to earn and guarantee respect from a man as a woman. It's a lie. It is a lie, lie, lie. That's all it. They either choose to respect you or they don't. So you're not there trying to beg, barter, negotiate, earn respect. That is a lie. Basic human respect is a given, or it should be. And when you have self-respect, you are observing how somebody treats you. If you don't like it, trust your judgment. Respond to reality. Don't try and be nice to them or try to do more for them, hoping that they will respect you. That never works. That doesn't work, because it's always a choice. If somebody has chosen not to respect you, that is their choice. This is why when you value your dignity, you stop asking, can I survive this? Because the question really should be, why am I trying to? Not can I, not do I have the capacity, why am I even trying to? When you start moving from that place, it changes friendships, family relationships, all of it. Because it's not about how much you can deal with, how much you can endure. When it comes to disrespect, there should be just a zero tolerance on disrespect. Now, here's the thing. Use your critical thinking. I do think when it's in the early days of dating, someone's showing you who they are as a person. There's no need to get all the way to marriage when you already saw disrespect on day one day. No. Okay. But obviously, when it comes to friendships and things like that, you may choose to communicate, you may choose to articulate yourself, but do not fool yourself and do not seek to endure more, especially when it comes to a certain level of disrespect. Do not beg, barter, negotiate. So I think these are the things that women need to understand about, these invisible contracts. This lie that women only need love and that men need respect. It actually doesn't even really lend itself to a healthy functioning relationship for either one. Because look, I know people think I'm a femso and a man hater. I really can't muster up the energy to be that. But if you think about it, in a healthy relationship for both a man and a woman, if you are heterosexual, doesn't a man deserve to genuinely feel loved in a union that is supposedly meant to be for that, right? And so this is why it's important that we pay attention to what this actually means in practice, so that both individuals are committing to showing up in healthy ways that are dignifying and that are truly respectful in a deeper, warmer, more earnest way. Okay? So anyway, as you know, we talk about invisible contracts and how to identify them in your life. And if you are thinking about this piece, the invisible contract audit is there somewhere in the link somewhere that you can look at.